Okay, good morning everybody, and thank you very much for joining this webinar on simple and effective KPIs to monitor and maintain APC controllers. My name is Sam Dhaliwal, and thank you for joining us from all different parts of the globe. We appreciate this very much, and I hope you will find the session helpful. It is very much, I would say, enhancing the knowledge and information you already have, perhaps just consolidating the information in one place. Key performance indicators for advanced process control. So I took the liberty of pulling out a Wikipedia definition of this, and I'm not going to go through everything, but what I have done is picked out, I would say, some relevant pieces from there and sort of elaborate on this and find the relevance with what we are doing in our world of advanced process control or just general operation of a facility, such as a refinery or a chemical plant or a petrochemical plant, gas plant. So a KPI is to evaluate the success of an organization. That's one element I've picked out of this. The second element is choosing the right KPI relies upon a good understanding of what is important to the organization. So clearly these are fairly logical things. And the third element is perhaps forgotten a little bit, and it's to do with performance indicators being routinely associated with performance improvement initiatives. And I think this part we perhaps are not doing very well, I would suggest. So our goal is to keep calm and reach KPI. Obviously, this is a very engineer thing. Make sure we define numbers and we understand numbers very well, and it's all very much in our comfort zone. So keep calm and reach KPIs. So evaluate the success of an organization. I would say the easiest way to look at this is in terms of profitability of an organization. So we understand profitability very well. Our organization understands profitability very well. So you can filter this down or you can scale it up from the base up. So you can look at saving energy as a means of increasing profitability or increasing production. Reducing costs in terms of energy costs or chemical costs if you have chemical additives. So in terms of dollars, this is an easy sort of representation across the board, all the way from, say, the CEO of the organization down to plant, the person who's running the plant. I think everybody is quite aware of this profitability aspect of an organization, which is associated with success. And in terms of the APC world, we look at this in terms of the benefits associated with advanced process control. Well, there could be other success criteria. It could be staff retention, for example, for an HR department. It could be equipment reliability or asset reliability for the maintenance department. It could be something quite innocuous like stress on staff, and that perhaps is very hard to, it is very difficult to measure, but there could be elements that we can pick up on that perhaps could be put into a KPI. So I think definition of a success of an organization is reasonably clear. Good understanding of what is important to the organization. This is all about making sure all stakeholders are involved, and whatever is the KPI that we are looking at, it's well understood by everybody. So this could be, engineers, operators, shift supervisors, management who are looking at monitoring the investment versus the benefits profile of various projects that they're doing. So it's important that these KPIs are really taken on board by everybody. And the third element I picked up was really to do with performance indicators associated with performance improvement initiatives. This perhaps is a little bit less, I would say, accepted or less put in practice. And it's really to do with a culture of continuous improvement. So if you set yourself a KPI, and if you are year on year maintaining or achieving or even exceeding those KPIs, it doesn't mean that you can sort of rest on your laurels and say, okay, I'm doing great. I think it should be a case of pushing yourself a little bit further and looking at how you can improve on those KPIs further and setting yourself new targets. So that's one way of looking at it. The second way is to say maybe the plant has changed and there is a different type of feed being processed. So let's reset our KPIs. Let's understand them a little bit better in the context of the new operating philosophy or the new operating window and reset our KPIs. So culture of continuous improvement is really important as well. Now, I've thrown this slide in. This is really a slide which belongs in maintenance of advanced process control. It's very often used to very clearly show how benefits decline over time. So you have a newly commissioned controller which is generating 100% benefits, and over time those benefits decline and we end up with a lot of lost benefit. And the cumulative effect of these red dotted areas, hashed area, is really quite significant if this timeline is extended to say 3, 4, 5 years. So this is one reason why KPIs get established, and it's also a good reason to establish KPIs so as to ensure that we are maintaining our benefits at a reasonably steady level across the time period, various years. So let's look at the thought process. What is it that we need to do in order to get these KPIs in place, and what should we be thinking when we are implementing them? And you can see this KPI champion. He's looking at, he has a dream that one day I will find all the right KPIs. So, I suppose this is a little bit further away from the truth for us, because typically we do find KPIs that are fairly representative of our operation, but nevertheless it is quite important that we choose the right ones. So some basic elements of this. We need to make the KPIs easily measurable. This is quite easy in our world where we have lots of measurements. However, you could have situations where maybe the measurements of some variables are not available. For example, you could have a steam flow that is, or steam going to venting to atmosphere from time to time, which could be lost money in terms of energy, and maybe you don't have a flow measurement on your vent, in which case it's not easily measurable. However, it is an important variable to understand. Therefore, perhaps you should look at that, coming up with a calculation for that. So even if it's not measurable, I would suggest that kind of variable would be important. A similar one would be, say, a fuel gas going to flare, or hydrogen going to flare, or something like that. Things that are perhaps not measured but important. So make them easily measurable, and lots of examples of where they are easily measurable, such as feed rates, product flows, product qualities, etc. Now, the KPI should be easily understood by all stakeholders in management. So this is quite an important one and fairly obvious statement to make. However, in order for you to have a sort of seamless flow of information and a seamless understanding, it is quite important that we set our KPIs in such a way that everyone, all the way from production people who are in the operations department through to engineers, process control engineers, as well as, say, management, have a good understanding of what we're trying to do. So it shouldn't be a KPI that is very engineer orientated, such as, for example, the MV utilization. I mean, that's a good KPI for an engineer, but you wouldn't expect a CEO to understand what that means. However, feed rate or product being produced, or more valuable product being produced, is well understood by all stakeholders, and that will gain a lot of traction throughout the organization. One way of doing this is to look at your existing production targets. So most operating facilities will have a production plan of some sort, and on that production plan you will have several variables that are key to running the plant, and it's quite a good idea to look at the production targets and use those directly as a KPI. Or indirectly as a KPI. So by indirectly, I mean there might be a calculation that you might need to do in order to come up with something meaningful. So look at the existing information out there and use it. Normalizing is quite important. Make sure in order for you to compare the KPI over, say, day and night conditions, summer, winter conditions, different feed rates or different production rates, that you find a normalization mechanism, so to speak. And that could be as easy as dividing by a unit of, dividing by the feed rate, dividing the KPI by the feed rate, or the production of the most valuable product, or it could be something more complicated. But in any case, what you need to do is make sure that you are taking into account different conditions. So normalizing is something you must think about. A common goal is also very important. So by that I mean make sure that you are communicating with your operations department as well as other people in the organization who care about the benefits, to set yourself a common goal. So that could be, for example, maintaining a very high level of production of a given product, or maintaining quality at a very low variance, for example, and make sure you monitor and communicate that goal clearly to all the stakeholders. And that's a great way of sort of pulling in the same direction and having a conversation on a daily, weekly, monthly basis about how you are doing against that common goal. When things are not going well, it is also important to analyze the areas when the KPIs are not meeting your expectation. And that means looking at the historical data and looking at events that have perhaps taken place. Maybe there was a shutdown, or there could have been a time when the feed rate or the feed type was different, which resulted in the KPIs being not met to what you expected them to be. So analyze those periods and make sure you understand and rationalize why those periods are happening, and are they perhaps systematic, in which case come up with some plans as to how to improve during those periods of poor results. It's important to present regular updates to stakeholders, and this means a consolidated sort of set of results where you can take some historical data and do some analysis and come up with a report or a presentation. And I would suggest a good way of doing this is to obviously prepare a short report, but also present the results. It's always nice to have a face-to-face presentation, for even if it's as short as 15-20 minutes, because that means that you can stimulate some discussions and perhaps get the benefit of the information and knowledge of other people around you who perhaps have a slightly different perspective than what you have as an APC engineer or a professional involved in sort of the control side of things. Challenging and revising KPIs. This is perhaps not done as much, and you could argue it is not necessary to do in several instances, but nevertheless, keep an open mind about this. And there's several examples where you can think of where, for example, the plant was debottlenecked and now you have more capacity. So, rather than reporting your results at 150% of the original base case, which was set up 5 years ago, you should really be normalizing against a new base case, which is now the debottlenecked plant capacity, for example, and base it on there and challenge yourself in that sense. Another way of doing this is to look at the active set of constraints that you have and look at those constraints and challenge the operations and the process people to see if you can extend some of those limits, which might mean you need to tackle some alarm limits, which means there's a management of change process required. It could mean that you need to extend the operating envelope of the plant, which again is perhaps a challenging conversation to have with process engineers, etc., where you need to, for example, increase a temperature by a degree or so, pushing it against or closer to a metallurgical limit or something like that. But these conversations are worth having, and it keeps you active and it keeps everybody involved in the culture of constant sort of improvement. So from an implementation side, how do you implement KPIs? There's several different ways. I would suggest in terms of the calculations, keep it simple. And if you, like I touched on earlier, if you can just maintain the calculations directly from a point of view of measurements that can be used directly, that is the simplest way, because then they are directly available. If you are unable to do that, then a simple calculation perhaps is can be done. You should maintain a history. These days there's disk space is very cheap, so I would say maintain long periods of history, maybe 5-10 years, where you can compare and contrast against previous time periods to really understand how well you're doing on the operation of your plant or operation of your APC system against a set of base cases that you set up. You should also try and set up a system, whether it's historian or and sort of Excel-based system, where you can easily extract data and make calculations as and when required, and generate reports, for example. So don't make it difficult for yourself for the whole process of collecting information and then cutting and pasting, etc. It should be a nice, easy, seamless way. And I realize these days there's some challenges associated with having your APC system on a different, I would say, network as compared, and it's not directly accessible from your business LAN. So you might have some challenges there as well. But try and do this in a way where you can easily collect the data and then generate reports and calculations. There are several commercial tools available for doing APC monitoring and KPI calculations within those tools. I would say a lot of those tools generate a lot of information, and some of that information is useful, but a lot of that information is very engineer orientated and not directly applicable to sort of KPIs as such. Many commercial tools allow you to generate custom calculations, which are also very helpful, and they generate reports that can be emailed to you, etc., if that is allowed by your IT departments. But as always, you have to make sure that you are not overwhelming yourself with information that is slightly useful, but you want to dig out and really present to yourself and to your colleagues information that is directly usable and directly useful. So I would say use these tools wisely and don't overwhelm yourself with a lot of the information that gets generated. Be selective. Okay, some examples. These are all very basic examples, so I would say no surprises here, but it gives you an idea of what is important here. So in a refinery setting, feed rate is quite important, so maybe you could set that as a KPI or maybe not. It depends if the production planning people are setting the feed rate, then really that's not something that the APC system can push. However, in some cases there are constraints on units, and maybe the production target set by the planning department cannot be met, and they would like to increase that target as much as possible, in which case it is an important KPI to have. So again, have a conversation, have a discussion with people and figure out what is important to the organization. Product quality is a fairly standard types of KPIs, and you have all the different types of products, and those can be measured either directly or they can be inferred, and these days inferential calculations can be developed for those variables. Product yields are also extremely valuable as KPIs, and that's directly related to profitability. Obviously, if you can get higher yields then of the more valuable product, then that's clearly extremely valuable for the company. Energy is a good one, especially these days. There's a lot of focus on energy. It's an area where there's a lot of savings to be had because of the higher cost of energy, relatively speaking, from the last, say, 15, 20 years ago. And things that you can look at are fuel gas to flare, steam loss to vent, power import, export. Those are things that can be looked at. Energy consumed per unit of feed or most valuable product. So you can do these sorts of analysis either across a single process unit, or you can look at a whole plant, a whole operating facility, which is the better way of doing it, because then you are really looking at the utility system and trying to manage that whole utility system. So this is an interesting one. On gas processing, the concept here is really to recover as much gas as possible and minimize the slippage of C2 plus to the sales gas. So you want to recover all C2 plus material and only leave, say, C1, etc., C1s in the sales gas. And here the recovery is quite important, so you want to recover as much as possible and also minimize energy usage. The feed process in gas processing generally is not, I would say, a KPI or of interest, in the sense that you have to process all the feed that comes in, generally speaking. There's very little flexibility. So if you can increase your capacity, it is always good, but that will soon get filled up by perhaps more gas coming down the pipe for you to process. Then we have petrochemicals. For example, on our ethylene plants, it could be ethylene production and severity. It could be feed in some cases, but it again varies from plant to plant. So I guess the main theme of the examples is keep the number of KPIs to a few KPIs per plant or per operating facility. And again, in keeping with the theme of the presentation, make these KPIs understandable to the organization, not just to you as an engineer. There's no stopping you from maintaining other KPIs that are sort of engineering related, that you can get out of some commercial tools, but those KPIs are not the ones that need to be communicated through the organization. They're to do with the health of the APC system, to help you maintain the APC system. Okay, there's some general KPIs. These are interesting ones which perhaps are forgotten. I would say alarms per hour, operator interventions per time period. These are two which are very interesting because they are a reflection on perhaps the stress on the operators. And I think these are very interesting KPIs to measure and keep in mind pre and post APC. And I think these, if they can be measured and shown to operations people, I think their interest level will increase in these tools, because clearly this is an area which helps them directly and makes their life easier, so to speak. Other KPIs is APC uptime. Interesting, but I would say I wouldn't worry about it too much, because the APC uptime is a little bit deceiving. You could have an APC controller running 100% of the time, but generating very little benefits. I think you need to look at several other things here. Equipment maintenance frequency. This has always been interesting for me, whether or not having a good stable plant, which perhaps is a direct result of a good, well-operating APC system, if that will actually help you in reducing your equipment wear and tear and equipment failures. Again, this is a difficult one to measure, but perhaps this is something that with modern equipment is easy to look at and keep some statistics on. So interesting one, but perhaps hard to get numbers for. So to summarize, create KPIs that are understood by all stakeholders. I would say this is probably the theme, and there's some examples there. More is not always better. So there's no point having 10, 15 KPIs when really you can communicate the message throughout the organization with, say, 2 or 3 KPIs. Make improvement and learn. Make improvements and learn. I think that is quite a key message from this. From all the different facilities I have visited, I think we have reached the point of make improvements, but I think learning and modifying and updating is happening, but it's not happening as much as perhaps it should. Share with management and highlight the contributions of your department to your organization as a whole in terms of profitability and improvement in even things like, fewer alarms and fewer operator interventions, because those are all very useful things for lots of different people in your organization. And, talk frequently with all stakeholders, I would say. So if you have a system which automatically generates reports and emails it to everybody, that's not job done. I think that is just part of the job done. You must make sure you are communicating with people, talking to them, and making sure that everybody has a good level of interest in your work that you're doing on the APC side. So I would say that's kind of like best practice. So we will end there. Now we can have your questions through the WebEx session, and I'll be happy to take some questions. There are a couple of questions that we have already here. So one of them is, can we compute KPIs using Pi, AP21, or even Excel? I would say yes. The answer is yes. The advantages of having a historian are you have large amounts of data that are perhaps available to you over 2, 3, 4 year period. So set up the calculations, for example, in Excel, if you can do that, or in those tools themselves, and generate those reports and send them off to your different stakeholders. We have another one here. Are there good and easy measures to compute model quality? I think model quality is very much an engineering type of variable, I would say. I wouldn't call it a KPI. It's really looking at how well your predictions are as compared to the actual process. And there are variables that are provided within the different APC technologies that allow you to look at the predictions, and you can use those as a mechanism of looking at perhaps model quality. I have another one here. How do you combine KPIs with APC maintenance? I think this is a good one. I think what you need to do is try and look at APC maintenance as a sort of an ongoing activity, and what you need to do is look at the performance of your APC system against the baseline, and I would say look at the sort of engineering units type of performance. So if your product quality variance is going up, or if your production of your more valuable product is going down, then try and set up a system where you can look into those models, have a conversation with operators and engineers to figure out if there's been changes on the plant. The earlier question about has the model quality deteriorated, and then look at those and come up with a strategy for the maintenance. So certainly the KPIs will give you a hint that something is not going well, and from then on you can try and do things to make improvements. Okay. I should say that while I'm taking some of these questions, if there are any questions that are not that remain unanswered, I would encourage you to please send an email to either myself at sam.dhaliwal@ipcos.com or to Christian, who organized the webinar, or you can send it to info@ipcos.com, and we will also send you a copy of the presentation if you'd like it, and also we will endeavor to answer your questions as soon as possible. So please don't hesitate to ask questions. There's another question here, which is when is the time to adjust the APC? What are the thresholds for the APC? So this is, I suppose, in some sense, similar question to APC maintenance. And I would say that you need to look at the first symptom of this is going to appear when perhaps your KPIs are not being met. And if you see that is happening, maybe your KPI is production of a particular product that is being sold, and if that production of that product goes down by 5-6%, even though your feed was constant, then it's time you know that something is wrong. So you would then go and have a look at that and try and troubleshoot from then on and look at model qualities, etc. So that's a good way of doing it. Okay, I think I will end the session here. Again, let me put up the last slide. Thank you very much for your participation, and we look forward to welcoming you on the next webinar, which will be on the 16th of May, and it will be how to integrate APC system into a network topology, and this will be presented by my colleague Hitendra Chauhan. So we look forward to seeing you then, and in the meantime, please, like I said earlier, please email us and your questions if we were unable to answer them today. And also, if you would like today's presentation, please email us and we'll send you a copy. And don't forget to tune into our YouTube channel if you would like to see this presentation or any others that we've done in the past. Thank you very much for your participation and have a great day. Thank you.